Good afternoon. It's Tuesday afternoon or evening. What would we consider it? Evening.
I say
5 o'clock
evening.
Evening.
A nice, rainy, gloomy
Miserable week
miserable Tuesday.
with some miserable news on treasuries.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things we're going to be talking about today is obviously the 10-year treasury hits an all-time high.
It's been, I think, it hasn't been this high since 2007. We're at a 16-year high.
Why that's important, guys? Why is that important? Well, it's the mortgage rate. So basically what's going to happen is that 10-year treasuries are going to hit a new low in price at 17 years and a new high on yields in 17 years. And what's behind the sell-off? That's what we're going to be looking at some of that and how it may impact you as a seller. And then we're going to talk about what it's like to transition to
Another state. When you sell.
There you go. Anyway, we're going to, like, if you're going to be moving, what you should be thinking about when you're moving, how to, like, navigate it if you're contemplating it, and we're going to tell you this off the bat.
We're going to touch on everything today. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to cover.
So the mortgage rates are at 7.65 with, the best credit score at a 30-year. But
So-
I think tomorrow morning.
Credit score is 800 plus.
So for you to get the average person will be in the eights, I'm going to say.
And then I think that's reflective as
And
of
that's
today.
that's not
so.
today. I think tomorrow with these treasury yields, an all-time, well, at a 16-year high, definitely it's going to affect the mortgage rates good because they're directly tied to the 10-year treasuries.
So, what does this mean? Well, let's first start the sellers out there, and let's get realistic. I do think that the headwinds are blowing a little bit stronger than they have in a while. So it's really that kind of market where the challenge is like, okay, how much could rates go up before like you really start seeing a real difference in like.
Well, it affects the pool of buyers right off the bat. But the higher the interest rates go, the smaller the pool of buyers, right? That if we're at 8%, then the people's ability to borrow is going to be less.
So like the difference between like a 6.5% and a 7% mortgage for a $300,000 mortgage is so like from $2,100 to almost $2,350.
So several hundred dollars a month. It
So
makes
just
a difference.
in a day it could flip flop that much. But where things get interesting is, and we do the stats, and I've done the stats last week. Everything like. And I talked about the curves because we talked about momentum and like where the momentum of the market's heading, and like
Reminds me of last year, 2022.
yes,
About the
this happened at the same time. Although Treasury yields did not get up to this point, so
No.
it was around the
Not
same
like this.
time this year, and it was.
September, October, November, all the way to Christmas.
And the interesting thing is that the February numbers came in last year, and that's typically like. That's where we saw like mortgage rates where their impact was the February numbers came out. We look at February and we said, geez, the market really took a dip, somewhere in the order of 5%, and then recovered. Contrary, after December, January started the mortgage rates to trickle downward. So it
made a huge difference.
Well,
It
where
was
you
in the
really
sixes.
notice is the Monmouth County area has like been the epicenter of a lot of.
Specifically, I've been in Monmouth County, Jackson, and that area, I call it a transitional market.
Well, Jackson's Ocean.
Is it?
Yes, so Jackson's Ocean.
So not Monmouth, okay. So, yeah.
But it's that borderline.
It's border.
So you go into like that freehold border, like where borders like Monmouth Ocean, we call it the transitional market. So that's where
That area is definitely softer to go quite a bit. I've seen price reductions.
Yeah.
I've seen longer days on the market with the properties. So they're definitely not having any bidding wars like you had in 2021, 22. So,
Yeah, some people really got they really slipped under the radar because they just sold in that frame just before rates really took
about a
off.
month ago.
Yeah, so there's a big difference between a month ago's market and today's market, and that's why one of the interesting things is the volatility of the market. So we're experiencing a high volatility in the market because of interest rates, meaning that prices could swing pretty quickly in one direction or the other based on interest rates and how much they've impacted affordability. So it's like, this is where like things get a little dicey, but I want to say this, contrary to what a lot of people say, last year versus this year, even though the yields are higher, the rates are higher now, there's less homes on the market than there were a year ago.
We still have that shortage of inventory, which there's a lot, so it gives more competition to the buyers. There's less to choose from. So that's what's keeping, I think, these prices are still stable.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think if you're cautionary, take a cautionary approach to this, is that you have to be aware of like activity on the house, because I do think that's key. If you start to see that decrease, guys, you don't want to tail the market in a market like this. So, and like people believe that maximizing value comes through giving a high list price.
I called that the lottery ticket, and I always tell clients, I sell houses, I don't sell lottery tickets. I want just, they want me to sell the house for, I can't control the market. Demand sets price.
Right.
I can't wave a magic wand and say, I'm going to sell this house for $1 million if it's worth $850.
Right. I think that's a lot of,
and no matter how good, and we are pretty good with we're actually really good with our marketing, but doesn't matter how good the marketing is, we can't magically make the price of a house go above $100,000 the market value.
Right.
We can't control market value.
it's what we call appeal within the range. So you have to have enough appeal within the range that you're selling in. So when we look at houses now, it's like you have to transition from, I think, and obviously there's a big debate with NAR and the lawsuit involving.
That's another. Yeah.
That's a big topic. I touched a little bit. Yeah, I touched a little bit on it last week, but I will touch on that. I think again, as soon as a little bit more information comes down, there's a hearing on that coming up in October.
Right.
The federal judge is going to hear the case. National Association of Realtors versus the U.S. government, and it's and there's like antitrust matters involved in that. But let's not focus on that, because we want to focus on what to do as a seller if you're transitioning from one market to another.
I get this question all the time. So people that are selling here in New York and Staten Island specifically, and they want to move to New Jersey, they always ask, I want to buy a house. Should I wait until I find something that I like and then put my house in the market? I always tell them, if you do that, you're going to waste your time. You're going to go out to New Jersey, you're going to look for properties, you're going to find the property that you like or that you love, and then you're going to want to put an offer in. If you have something to sell, the listing agent's going to ask you if you have something to sell, you're going to say yes. And if you're not in contract and you're not on the market, they're not going to accept your offer.
Right.
Because they can't take that house off the market in the hopes that you sell your house. Additionally, New York, on average, in the best case scenario, we're looking at 45 to 60 days to close. New Jersey,
I think we'd say 90.
Probably 90, but that's why I said the best in a perfect world.
On our books, it's definitely 90.
Definitely 90. So let's just say 90 days, and in New Jersey, it's about 30 to 45. So you close a lot quicker in New Jersey and other states.
Yeah,
so I think it's best to put your house on the market first if you're selling here in New York.
You have to.
Get it into acceptance and contract, then start shopping around, because you have 60 to 90 days until you have to close. You have a nice window to find the house that you like in New Jersey. And then once you put the offer in, it's like a bad word. When you say contingency, they don't want to hear it, but it does help.
They really don't.
They don't like it.
They don't want to hear it.
But that's how they'll take your
Even in
offer
this-
serious.
Even in this, you know, even with this law, but you're more inclined, I think, in this market to see that contingencies are acceptable.
If they have no other offers, they're gonna have to take that contingency. Because
Yes,
there's nothing
I
else.
think it's the interesting thing is contingencies, folks. That if you're out there and you're negotiating these things, you need to listen more carefully than you have in the past. I do think
I
that.
think the agents got spoiled over the last couple of years where they had the pick of the litter. You had 15 offers on the table. Some are cash.
A lot of cash.
Some are like, yeah, a lot of them are cash. I'm ready to go. So of course you're not going to take the one with a contingency. You're going to go for the cash offer. Now it's not the case. You may not have any offers on the table. So guess what? That offer with the contingency is now your only offer. So it's your best offer.
So when you say someone transitioning from New York to New Jersey, how many days do you assume, like, after contract? So you put the house on the market, get the offer accepted, they go into contract. They have about, what's the time frame you project?
60 to 90 days.
Like for that actually begin the process of like how much
Well, in
time?
Jersey,
You think it was about 30 days?
yeah, because I mean,
You have about 30 days because you're gonna have
it's
extra
easier to
time.
buy.
Yeah,
because you're
because
looking
you're gonna close fast.
correct.
So you're gonna close in 30 days in New Jersey.
Right.
And that's where a lot of New Jersey people have some issues with, is that some of them sometimes they go out there to buy, and what happens is you're dealing with someone, they say, oh, 90-day closing, how you're putting a closing date for 90 days.
That's New York.
And like, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, for New Jersey agents, the one thing that
And it's interesting because New Jersey
normal.
they do things differently. When you do a contract in New York,
they
the closing
absolutely
date
freak
is
out
on or about.
Yes.
On or about means within 30 days.
within
New
30
Jersey is on
Oh.
or before. So it's completely different. So let's just say you have a closing date of November 1st in New Jersey. You must close by November 1st, on or before. If you have a closing date of November 1st in New York, it's on or about, which you could go all the way to November 31st or December 1st, within 30 days.
30 days generally, and sometimes even
So there's a lot more leeway. So it's completely, and also,
you can extend it too. So
You
I've
can.
seen them, people like they literally go like an extra
Couple
another
weeks.
30 days. So
Sure.
like because in New York, in order to cancel the contract, they have to do a time of the essence,
a letter, right?
and then it's like 30 days of the time of the essence.
So it's more complicated.
So times of the essence here versus New Jersey is like New York to cancel a contract is a little bit different.
Definitely, you want to put your
And
house on the market.
they threatened New Jersey. They threatened to pull that contract.
Oh, they'll pull it. No, they.
Oh yeah, if you don't get that thing closed before like November 1st. So when you go out there, it's like it's important to remember like, and this is why like we're working with dual agents that work in New York and New Jersey, understand the process. So when they put the offer
Right.
in, they know that this is what the expected closing date is, and like how to kind of navigate the buy process, because we know that it's going to take 90 days, where somebody who just does New Jersey real estate may not understand the
No,
process
they
of
don't.
closing here, and then they put you in a contract, and then you sign that, because you actually sign the contract on that day.
Right.
So, the day that you state on that contract is the day you're going to have to adhere to.
Well, yeah, New Jersey, when you put that
I
over,
mean, it is subject to attorney review, so I mean, it can be changed, because the attorney will be able to review that contract once you put it in there. But, and, it can be the difference between, you never like to change things midstream, because it leaves a kind of bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths about like what.
So we're used to it all
What
the
the
time.
offer
We're
is.
dual license, so I handle the sales side here in New York, and then we handle the same buyer. We handle it in New Jersey, so we can make a smooth transaction
Right.
because we know how both markets work.
How both markets work, and they are working very, very independently these days. I'd highlight that in some of the stat reports. Monmouth County still has some very hot areas.
Manalapan.
Manalapan, Morganville,
Old Bridge.
Middletown, Red Bank. Even with these crazy conditions, It's fared better than New York has fared. So I'll say that for state that for the record. But we did the stats last week.
The thing is, I think people
101% is still the one. It was at a high of 104, 105% of list to sell ratio on
a lot of above ask.
most of the closings were above ask, and even as of last month. However, we did notice is those curves. We always talk about curves because we always talk about stocks and everything else. Momentum, market momentum. One of the things we saw is that the market did pick up, but it didn't break the high of the last list to ask ratio. So if you look at the curve, it's like this, but it doesn't break. So it's interesting. It's starting to show on the curve that we almost passed the point. It almost looks like the downslope in the beginning.
Stabilize a little bit.
Right, it's starting to come, things are starting to, it made the turn on the curve. And we always look at these things as a factor, because I always like to charting is always a good thing, whether it's stocks, even real estate. The charting shows that the list to sell ratio was starting to turn last month. So it's indicative that it's not going to show up in price because you're at 101% of price asked to list ratio. So what's going to start to show is that at some point, the interesting thing is that at its low happened last year.
Right.
At this time in New Jersey, it happened when the rates went up back in October.
Yeah, it kind of had a lull.
Yeah, and it had this big lull. October, November,
And then they had an
December was very, very, very
crickets.
rocky. Yeah, and it's like, it's a little, I'm gonna tell you, it's a little disconcerting right now for everybody that's listening. It's definitely a little daunting, to say the least, that we're gonna see some I think we're going to see some reaction to this interest rate. There's some changes coming. I'm not particularly happy about them, or anybody else should be.
It's weird.
You're a seller. This is not. But you have a lot of people expecting that there's going to be you watch and they're crash. So let me the economics of this is that the one thing that the economy has held out on is jobs. Jobs have been the thing that has held up in a high interest rate environment. The real question becomes now is if that weakens, what happens? So the Treasury came out with a report last week that says that Americans are out of their pre-pandemic savings. So basically they run out.
They're maxing out credit cards.
And then they max out credit cards. So this is when it gets a little challenging. Let's see what happens with this, because credit card defaults were at a high from 2006. So people aren't paying their credit card bills.
Sure.
So last month was not.
Car loans
are up. The defaults are up. So we're starting to see some fissures.
cracks.
Well, cracks that could turn into fissures. Let me not say fissure yet. But I definitely think the cracks are going to show here. If the jobs numbers, which is really what they're after, I believe the Fed's after that. The Fed is looking for unemployment to rise, to control inflation.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. And it's not, it goes against their operating to maximize employment. That's really the mandate of the Fed.
They always have to have some kind of unemployment.
That's the mandate, technically. Maximum employment. Now, it's kind of reversed itself. It's like, that's the thing they're really after. I do think that they're not making an adjustment to rates downward until they start seeing unemployment numbers rise. And I don't know.
They want the economy to cool the inflation.
I don't know if there's a lot of, the funny thing about statistics and how it's being reported is labor participation rate is really bad. So in general, people aren't working. And that's the interesting thing is they talk about unemployment numbers as but the percentage of Americans actually working is really at some pretty bad lows. It's not, you're talking about a good, so when you look at unemployment, they say, unemployment's great.
Well, they stop using the data though. Once you stop collecting unemployment, they don't no longer use those numbers.
My thing is what we may be looking at something that's are we making decisions based on, if the Fed is making decisions on what's being reported by the Labor Bureau, is it necessarily that accurate?
I don't think it is. The way they use data is, let's just say they have a 7% unemployment rate, and they count the people that are on unemployment. If you don't find a job and your unemployment runs out, they don't use that person as a statistic anymore.
Yeah.
So but that person's still not working. They're unemployed, and they're no longer collecting unemployment. But they're not using that. They're not using that number now.
The percentage of Americans actually working is down. So like from like 2006, 2000, like just prior to the Great Recession, never really fully recovered like jobs.
Because of quantitative easing too.
So like the labor participation rate is really at some pretty. So it's very hard to make a basis on like that being a factor, but it's definitely something.
A lot of these things don't make sense.
What happens? What happens from here is the best that, and I think there's a lot of anxiety out there. I'll tell you, I think there's a lot of anxiety about where the economy, I think the number one thing people will experience right now is where is the economy going to go and how am I going to navigate it? Because they're trying to figure it out right now, especially with Americans tapping out of savings, credit cards tapping out. Now it's going to go debt into consumer. I would tell you that there's definitely an expectation that unemployment's going to rise on this latest data because obviously without consumer, the American consumer has supported, I think that was a big thing the Fed had come up with.
We're consumerism-based society.
Yeah, and the American consumer supported, while they were trying to curb inflation with higher rates, the thing was that people still weren't paring back their spending habits.
They were taking vacations, going out to eat.
And if you have money on the sidelines, you're doing well with interest rates for the first time in a very long time. So if you
actually, the high yield savings accounts are paying about 5%, which is great.
Yeah. Matter of fact, your favorite crypto is now at 5%. USDC.
Yeah.
5%.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that also we're looking at here is they're gonna listen to me, guys. They're talking about all this Fed tightening stuff that they're gonna raise rates again. I'm telling you now, it's not gonna happen.
Eventually, they're gonna have to come back.
Well, I just don't think they're gonna happen. I think the next report is gonna be pretty bad. Like they're really gonna sound the alarm.
Reverse course.
And the problem is like, where does it cascade out of? Because that's going to be the interesting part. Is like, can you create a cascading event that they can't really reverse out of? And I think that could happen pretty quickly, and we need to watch. Someone needs to be watching it.
The problem that I see now is that with these high rates, that's why we have such a low inventory of sellers on the market. Because if I purchased the house a few years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, and I'm at a 3%, 4%, right? I want to keep that rate. But if I sell my house now and I buy now I'm at an 8%. And that's why people are not going to put their home for sale, because they don't want to let go of that low interest mortgage rate that they have locked in for 30 years.
But what's the one thing that's holding that up?
Jobs, right?
So if that changes.
I always say, my thing is,
Well, you said you did Orlando, right? You said that was a big thing.
Orlando, what happened is, because I have a
Split
property in
stuff.
Orlando, and I looked at what happened during the 2006 to 8 crash. And what happened, Orlando was a super hot market, and it's an economy based on tourism, Disney World, Universal Studios, and during the market crash of 06, 08, there was a high unemployment. They reached a 10% unemployment rate in Orlando.
Yeah.
And the local population, they could no longer afford, and they had to sell. A lot of foreclosures, and the prices crashed hard because of the unemployment. That's what caused that. Because right now, that market in Orlando, it's
That would be the
super high.
one thing that would keep the market like that.
So unemployment, if then that will definitely bring the prices of properties down because people are going to have to let go, and you'll have more inventory. Then, if you have a flood of inventory in the market,
I don't think that's going to happen. So I personally don't believe that unemployment numbers will reach that level because the labor participation. The one thing that you have to say is the labor participation rate being as low as it is, that doesn't mean unemployment's not going to go. It's not going to. The one decent thing about my thing about the difference between 2008 and like the possibilities, which is always something that's being flexed now. It's like, oh well, it's 2000. The underlying conditions, which is that subprime market, which is people. I happened to catch the movie Big Short the other day. And
I
it's
gotta
like,
watch that movie.
yeah, it's an interesting movie because like they didn't even the loans are written in dogs' names. Like you could write a $500,000 loan on your dog.
Yeah, liar loans. Like
It was just
back
like,
then you would walk
and
in,
it was so.
and you see, I make
you don't have the
$100,000 a
same.
year, and they wouldn't even check that. Oh, here you go.
But
No W-2s.
You know, this is a result, and this is the failed experiment. Is that when they close down the economy, it's like we're going to shut the heart off and then try to restart the body like a month later and see if it works. Like you're not going to have collateral, and this is a result. This is what they call a post-pandemic economy, where it's like you know, like they overstimulate the body.
The
It's like
pandemic
it's like
did
the heart. You
change-
can't stop the heart. It's not. The economy works as like a
But the
like a
pandemic
living
changed-
body,
They changed the
and it's like
workforce.
it's yeah. And it
You have
changes
remote
that.
work now. There were a lot of people that were making.
But they shut it off. It's like the blood. The money is the blood of the economy. So if it doesn't flow and you stop it, and then you prop it up artificially,
Something's got to give.
something's going right. It's like, okay, the kidneys don't work now because we shut the body off for a month, and it's like it doesn't work. And then I think what you're seeing is like, oh well, we put too much money into the economy. Let's retract from that. Okay, but you overload the kidneys, and the kidneys are already damaged. So it's like, okay, now when you take it away, it's like you're gonna get kidney failure.
Right.
That's where the market.
It's a catch-22.
Right, so it's like, and they want to fix the inflation problem, but they made it. I mean, not to mention the national debt is at 31 trillion.
Jesus.
We printed more money in the span of 2 years than the whole entire. Like we printed the GDP of the country in a span of 2 years, where it took almost like 30.
Oh my God.
In 2 years. So, I mean, that's where people will get nervous. Is it right to get nervous at this point? No. I'm not gonna, it's not really, it's just really about, like, if you are, let's talk about the process of real estate itself. And a lot of people, like, they fear a lot of things about this process, and they're like, well, wait. Always, I'm gonna tell everybody this from the beginning. When it seems like it's the worst time and everybody's not doing it, is when you do it.
That's like the Warren Buffett theory.
And I believe it's all the
Be
time.
greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy.
And the same applies to real estate. I'm saying this because my thing is that a lot of people will try to time these things out
You can't time it.
because they watch a lot of TikTok videos. And it's with trends. It's like, well, you know, it's like Wall Street bets, who are all broke now, by the way. It's like the idea.
This is
like the reverse scenario of those type of ideals that are like, we're going to follow the herd, and the herd is always heading in the direction that usually everybody else is kind of like not going in the right. So it's like, you know, and it's like, when's the time? So to me, when's the time is like if you're going to move and you have the equity position in your house,
If you're gonna move,
you're still going to buy a lot of houses at 100% equity in New Jersey, or if you're going to decide it's a lifestyle change, it's a lifestyle change.
People always
Waiting to
have
maximize value when you're moving to something else is subjected to the market as a whole. So the interest rate comes. Let's just say the interest rates come down. It's gonna. We already have we already had the litmus test for what happened back in.
Well, the
in
weird thing
December.
back in when the rates, I remember
January.
06, back in the 06, 7, 8, the rates were really low back then, and during the market crash. All
They
the
were
way
high at 2000. They really started.
all the way to
popping up.
2012, they were about three and change. We had a high inventory, low mortgage rates, okay, and a lot of foreclosures. Now we have a very low inventory
I've never met somebody.
and very high rates, which is odd. I've never seen such
That's the
low
thing about it. It's
inventory.
like,
That's what the difference between this market and the other market. That's what's keeping these prices at this level, because there aren't that many houses on the market. There's a shortage of inventory.
I don't think that's going to change. I really don't believe at the end of the day that is going to change. The only thing, and to be honest with you, I think the MO at this point is that even in New York, they made the mortgage process so cumbersome that to foreclose on a property, you can be in a house for
10 years.
we've had it 10 years. I mean, you can be in a house for 10 years without paying more. So it's like, are people, if they lose their job, are they necessarily going to give up their house? I don't think so. It's not. It's just, I don't. So it's like under normal circumstances, but I'm going to say this because I think most people wait till the wrong time to do things. If you have and this is a tough choice that people will make in markets like these. If you're not in the best financial condition, don't expect those things to continue. Resetting the timing of your reset is as important a factor as any. So if you are in that distress situation, it's time to really say, okay, where do I reset and how do I reset with? Because time, I've done this so often, time has proven that everybody waits, the options are at their absolute worst before they make the option available. So they like, as time goes on, the options to do things get less and
I've
less.
seen it
The
with-
losses become more and more and more. And it's like, okay, there has to be a point in time where it's like, okay, you press the button here if that is a financial distress situation. You're going to see it. You're going to see it. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's people who, with prices being what they are, car loan, utility bills, mortgage, but I'm going to say this, I don't expect prices to go down. They'll come down a bit, but a little bit. But it's going to come down, and conversely, it's going to go up wherever like the market is. It's a very hard game to win at, because I don't think that people it's like, oh, well, we're gonna sell a house, move to the next house, and get the best deal in the world. And I'm still convinced it really doesn't exist. Even in 2005, you bought, you sold, and you had maybe a small equity position, and then did those people actually lose? No. I think it's the same parameters for every market. You're going to buy and sell in the same market that you exist in.
Right, if you sell high, you're gonna buy high.
Yeah, I mean and unfortunately, most people do it when the market goes up. And I'm going to say
FOMO, fear of missing out.
that.
But I've seen also cases.
Oh,
where-
so-and-so down the block got, $700,000 for a semi-attached house. If I get $700,000, I can afford to buy this.
Right.
But at the top end of the market, if a 4% increase at the top end of the market is far more expensive than a 4% increase at the bottom end of the market. So it's like,
I've seen cases also when you have older people that want to sell and they wait. They have problems with their knees, mobility problems, and they live in this huge house with steps, a second story
I see this
bedroom.
all the time.
And they wait and they wait and they wait to the point they can no longer go up those stairs. And now it becomes an emergency. I have to sell. Well, they knew it was coming. You'd have to downsize.
It's one of the things we kind of.
I see that all the time. All the time. They just don't want to downsize, and then it becomes an emergency. All of a sudden, I have to move. I can't go up the stairs anymore. My knees. I need a ranch house, and
that's the number. I think if I face any real issue, it's always I don't have to move. Well, you do at some point. Everybody's gonna.
I know everybody's like they make it personal. This is a people business, right? But it's funny because I find a lot of the sellers or buyers, they get very defensive. Like, well, I don't have to move. Like a little child. Like they get like, well, I don't have to move. I don't care. And it's not and it doesn't become a business decision at that moment. It becomes an emotional decision. And they start thinking with their emotions.
Something like emotions from real estate. That should be its own show.
You know, and
it really is true because you see it. It's like there's an over attachment to it with a house, and I call it like, you know, some people have like sentimental value is a big value that's added on. Now we talked about this, and you know I want to kind of go off with this because one of the things you came up with is that 6 cents thing.
6 cents. So yeah, we have.
And like
me personally, how do I
so
buy a house?
let's just get the context for everybody who's watching. So we talk about like setting up your house now and understanding people's 6 cents, not sick.
Sixth.
Huh?
The sixth. We have 5 senses.
That is
and
the
there's a
sixth
mysterious sixth, which I call intuition.
Intuition. The intuition, and this is something that you'll never get a calculator for.
There's no
I call it just so
program,
you know,
computer program. There's no
there is a
algorithm for it.
range of about 3% of your home's value is on 6 cents intuition.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting take. And you have to pay attention to what the market says in these instances because sometimes you can't fathom to understand what the hell's going on. And it's like, what is the actual problem?
It's how people, like my wife, I'm going to use my wife as an example.
So, just one, get that one. I'm going to give you, let me just finish this one thought because I just want to. So, you'll see, this is why houses that stay on the market longer get that 6 cents.
Well, they get
Nobody wants, you know, let's put it this way. It's like being the last guy at the dance. You know, everybody else is dancing. The last guy at the end of the line is like, okay, nobody wants him.
Why? There's something wrong with
it. And, you know, I don't like applying that to real estate, but it is.
I call that's a stigma. That's what
it's in fact it's in fact the case. It's really the thrust.
But what you can't control is like how do people feel? They walk into a home and it just feels right to them. That's what I call a sixth sense. All right, when we're looking at homes with my wife, I like this house. It was an old Victorian. My wife was convinced that the house was haunted. It looked kind of spooky. It was old, really old. It was the wood, the floors were creaking, and it's like no, it's just. I like the house. She said, "No, this house is haunted. I don't feel right in it," and that's what the sixth sense. Some people get a feeling when they go into the house, and that's something that no computer program or algorithm you can't comp that.
Can't count for it in your.
I use my senses when I buy a house. Sense of smell.
We do it. We just know.
If a house smells, it's a problem. You have a hard time selling. We walked into a home
It's the number one.
If there's an offensive odor, and pictures, you cannot smell photos. So you look at a house online, you're looking at all the photos. It looks great. Hardwood floors, granite countertops, looks beautiful. You can't smell that. Now you show up at the house, they have 15 dogs and 30 cats in the house, and it smells.
It's like a bad date.
And that's a problem. That is like they walk in and they're gonna be turned off.
And that's it.
I use my
Smell
ears.
is a very
Sounds.
I think sounds, creakiness, but smell by far is like, and you know what? Nobody will point to it because it's not in that it's kind of it's innate. So meaning like it's innate in the thinking, meaning that it's not factored as a logical thing. It's factored as part of the experience, and that's where people get it wrong. It's like, does it factor? And it's like, you won't, like some people who don't smell it, or the smell is not pungent enough to turn the head, but it has a smell. So it's like, and it's like, it won't be noticed, like, but when they look around and the smell's taking place, it's kind of eerie that it does.
Well,
it takes precedence over like
the smell of
their
dampness.
opinion.
Well, if that smells damp, right? It has that musty damp. People will say to me, "Oh my God, that house has water damage. It smells. Does it have mold?" Right away, things click in their head. If there's carpeting, it smells like the house is dirty. All these things start.
I think it's even some of the things. It's not even like I said. Those are the more obvious things. I think some of the more unobvious things is it just may have a stranger smell, and nobody can really identify what the hell it is. But and maybe not say anything about it. But it's not like it's the experience part that's kind of being missed, and it's like you can miss the boat, and it's why. Like,
Well, as soon as they smell it, they want to get out of there. They want to leave. Like if it's a.
I had a seller once who got really offended that I said their house needed some deodorizing, and they're like, "What do you mean you need deodorizing? Like, you make my house smells."
Well, I think they had a dog in there with.
I don't know.
the
No,
dog.
this is way before your time, and it's like I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just
telling
trying to tell
you,
you. I worked with 1,000 buyers in my life, and in the time of doing this, it's like I know it's like, what is that? And it's like.
Sounds too. If there's a baseball field nearby, a lot of noise in the area, people, cars, a busy street.
Yeah, those are some of the creaky floors. You know, I've heard people. That's one of those ones that is one of the non-obvious ones that, like, yes, we know the traffic. That's definitely one of the more obvious ones. But I think the thing,
The creaking floors, yeah.
if you have loose floorboards, you have, and like you hear that creaking as you walk, there are ways to kind of like pay attention to it, because it's one of the things that I think in the course of selling a house that kind of resonates most. Besides, I mean, all the sounds,
Yeah,
noise,
people always
like,
mention that the
air
floors-
pollution, and as a general, the floors and like the stairs, if they hear creaky steps,
Yeah.
and it's like they're walking up the steps, the experience could be. There's some people I know who know how to dampen. That actually they know how to use dampeners. What happens is wood over time, it settles, and like wood actually shrinks a bit. So it's like it dries out.
Well,
and
maybe they
shrinks
use,
a little
if it's
bit.
an older house, they use nails
Right.
instead of screws. Screws
Right.
fasten a lot better than
And
nails.
it's just, but I think there's like gaps emerge over time. It's just the natural, and there are people who actually do things to minimize like those. It's just like little things, ambient things that we talk about. We're talking about the sixth sense here, and like the sixth sense is like some of the things that they're not readily available to the mind. Like it's not like something that they specifically say is sound wise, smell wise, but its existence in the mind while they're making the look around is something that is affecting their decision, and that's really what we wanted to focus on. So what do you think, what's your prediction for the housing market moving into 2024? Jeez, where's time go?
24, my God, wow. I see some kind of correction. Not a huge correction, but some sort of correction. I think some markets, especially the transitional markets, I feel that they're overpriced.
Yeah.
I'm basing that on, what people make, on their affordability. And what they
The
can
only
afford.
thing
That's the
the
realistic.
supply is the only
The only thing holding it up right now is the supply. But again, if unemployment numbers come in and now people have to unload these properties, it changes things again.
Where's that leave us?
Can we predict? No, I don't have a crystal ball. Anything can happen. We could reverse course.
My prediction is that it's not going to be, when we say correction, the correction will be similar to what it was last year. So between locally 4 and 5% as you move away from the metro
I think if
areas.
we see the rates drop again, like we saw that tick in 20, you see an uptick in showings and offers and property.
I
So
believe there's
I
going to be
think-
a pivot. There's going to be a pivot on the Fed rate soon.
I believe so. Also, I think
They're going to pivot
they're
around
gonna reverse
fast.
course.
They're going to reverse course faster than you think. I think they're saying a lot of things. I'm telling. There's a couple of bank failures that may exist. There was one recently that another bank just, and it's going to continue because they're holding crappy treasuries on the books as a way to secure their depositors' money, and it's
I
not.
think the bigger banks will just get bigger. That's what's going to happen.
Maybe that's the play. Maybe that's the play after all. Well, that's something you guys can weigh in on out there. It's like, what do you think the play on interest rates is? I mean,
But to wrap it up,
are you feeling strapped?
to putting the house on the market, I for the people out there listening, if you want to move, you want to go to New Jersey, you want to go to the Carolinas, if you're retiring, put your house on the market first.
Yep.
Get into contract. If you're in New York, you have 60 to 90 days. That should be ample time for you to find something that you like. It's easy to find something that you like and buy, as opposed to selling. You're waiting for the buyer to come in to buy your house. And also, you don't want to waste your time. You're gonna see something you love, something you like. Oh my God, I love you. Take your wife with you. Oh my God, I love this house. I want to put an offer in. Now you can't put an offer in. You could, but I wouldn't accept the offer on behalf of a client. The first question, if I'm representing my seller, first thing I'm going to do is say, you have something any contingencies? Yes, we're selling our house. Is it on the market? Is it in contract? Let me see the contract. Let me see the property. I'll take a look at it. I'll go back to my seller. I said, look, they're in contract. They're going to close in 30 days. Looks good. Looks solid. If they're not in contract, I'm going to tell my seller, we're not taking this house off the market, in the hopes that they sell that house if it sells. So, if you are planning to move, put your house on the market. First, get that house in contract, and then go and look. And you have time. And you can work it out with the attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but you can work out the possession agreement, right? You may have a closing date, and you may need an extra couple of weeks. You can pay rent to the buyer, or you may get a couple of extra weeks, but it's a possession agreement. That can be worked out. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
I've done 4-way deals where the buyer had to sell and my seller had to buy. So we had a 4-way deal going, and we were able to do that. That's why realtors are important. It is a people business. Things like that. There are a lot of moving parts. A computer is not going to walk you through these deals. Go on an inspection with you. Deal with all the intricacies that come with a real estate transaction.
I think the emotional part is.
And also, that's the key part. Why the emotional part, negotiations, and yes, we're not emotionally involved in the process, but moving is.
Oh yes, we are.
Well, yeah.
Well,
Well, they say that moving is probably one of the most stressful. They said besides death, I think they said that
Something.
moving rates up there as one of the most stressful events in a person's life. If you really think about it.
Especially for a guy who has to give up his man cave.
True. So when I'm dealing with a client, I try to put myself on their shoes. They're moving. They're stressed
I
out.
find most men are very satisfied as long as there's a microwave, a
That's it.
basement finished, or something.
In a garage.
Maybe a garage, but just it doesn't take much. So it's always the decision process. For most guys, it's kind of simple. It's like, okay, well, for most people, not saying it's all the case, but it's one of the interesting things that I found throughout my 18 years, 17 and a half, 18 years that I've been doing this. It's like, okay, who's making the decision here? It's almost freaky to say that, I've lived through this process.
I would say 90% of the time, the wife.
Yeah, I think.
I mean,
yeah, it's.
I was
generally.
more flexible. My wife was more stringent. She wanted a certain kitchen. I had to meet her. Like you said, Give me a microwave. I'm good to go.
Microwave, a recliner, and a TV.
That's it. But
Only requirement maybe is the bathroom has to be on the same floor as the recliner.
right.
But that's how it goes. Anyway, well, that's what we have for now. And if you have a question in this crazy environment, I think just overall, this is nutty times. It really is. It's in 18 years.
That's the world of real estate. That's a wacky.
This is
wacky
the wacky world. I mean, in general, it's like
I've met.
don't make sense of this.
I've met the most interesting people, to say the least,
Oh, it's
in
just,
this business.
geez.
All walks of life. You meet
You
all
need,
sorts of people.
you have to be a psychiatrist.
You know, I actually envy psychologists because they get paid to listen to people's problems and don't call me.
Well, I think that's about 90% a lot of times of the transaction.
The transactions, they be going.
I said, sometimes you need to learn that, the client isn't necessarily angry at you. You're
You're
just
there
there to vent.
Yeah, you're the punching bag, and you have to.
So it's there for that.
Anything that
purpose.
they get angry at throughout the process,
You're going to be
you're
on the hook.
they're gonna call you. And
We deal with it all the time, and we I've dealt with too many stressful situations. I remember having I could do a whole talk event on all the years I've been doing this and all the stuff that I've seen, from people waiting outside to people burning the house down on the day of closing. So I've seen it all. It's interesting. It's
the
been interesting
wacky world of real estate. We had some laughs,
of human emotions.
funny things that occurred during the transactions, and there's always a war story, like you call them.
That's what I always say. Without a war story, you're not a good agent. So you need them. If you're not experienced with them, get experience with them, because if you're an agent out there, it's like an agent has plenty. I always say that one question to ask any agent when you say, well, give me a worst story in real estate, and go with the person that gives you the worst one.
That means they've been in the business the longest.
Yeah, they've been in the business the longest because they've had enough experience to experience the bad. But we're gonna seal it off at this point, and hopefully, thank you again for coming and doing this, and we'll do quite a few more of these in the near future. And if you have a question, please hit us up here and put a comment in the comment section, and let us know if there's something we can help with. All right. So Vic, any last words?
Let's keep an eye on this rates tomorrow.
Let's see what happens. All right, guys. So that's where we are tonight. You have a great night, a great Tuesday, and deal with all the lack of sun that we've had and the continued.
Hopefully, we'll get nicer weather.
We get nicer weather, but shorter days.
Shorter days.
That's the bad part. But anyway, have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
All right.